What do we got here? We got cover crops. And today the primary goal for the two little mini beds behind me is to plan out the next set of cover crops. I've had the chickens out of this area for about a month now, and I'm gonna seed down some Daikon radish and some winter mustard. These are two crops I tend to use for a cover crop over the winter because they germinate really well at cool temperatures. I'm not convinced that the chickens love them, but as I said in the previous video, it doesn't matter if they love it or not because this is the greens that they're getting. So what I'm going to do today is do a little experiment. I'm going to compare the seeding rate stated by Peaceful Valley Farm Supply, where I got them, with how much I instinctually want to put down on these beds. Because I always feel like I'm overseeding, but I've never really weighed and measured the seed to know how much am I overseeding. So that's my goal today. So these are what the seeds look like. Now this is a little bit of a bastard seed mix here. There's a bunch of extra stuff in it. There's a little bit of buckwheat and a little bit of chia seed that I never got around to eating in here. But I would say 90% of this mix is a mix of mustard and radish. As cover crops themselves, they function pretty well. If you're looking for a big biomass producer over the winter, I mean, both of these are them. Now, the one thing I've never been happy with on the Daikon are the roots that the Daikon makes. I've never gotten these big forearm-shaped roots that Toby Hemingway and other people talked about in Daikon. This is probably one of the bigger roots that I've ever gotten, and overall the plant gets to be 3 to 4 feet high with some nice flowers on it that pollinators definitely like this time of year. Mustard is going to be a similar size. It's probably 3 to 4 feet high. The leaves on this one much more peppery than the Daikon. I think the chickens prefer the radish over the mustard. In the mustard you get these pretty yellow flowers, which I think pollinators tend to like. The root system totally different. On mustard it's more of a branching root system, fibrous, where on Daikon you definitely get the big single root like you would expect. All the seed I got came from groworganic.com, that's Peaceful Valley Organic Farm Supply, and I just want to state the rates on these because they're pretty cheap seeds. Now you can get cover crop seed for around $1 a pound, so these are going to sound more expensive than that, but on the grand scheme of things, they're not that expensive. The mustard itself was $3.59 a pound when I ordered it last August, and the Daikon was $3.49 a pound, so pretty cheap. Now, they quote the mustard at a seeding rate of ½ pound per 1,000 square feet. And then the Daikon, 1 pound per 1,000 square feet, so twice as heavy with the Daikon. Now this little area behind me, it's not very big, it's pretty small. It's actually only 34 square feet. So that means I need about 7 grams of mustard on a bed, and I need about 14 grams of Daikon on a bed. So what I'm gonna do is do a little measuring here and see how close do I get instinctually, because again, I think I'm putting on a lot more than that. And I kinda wanna be diligent with the seed, although it's not that expensive, but I don't want to overseed and waste it. There's no point in that. Both of these crops germinate pretty well in cool soil temperatures, which is why I've used them over the winter. For the mustard, it's going to be a 5 to 10 day germination period, and the Daikon is like 7 to 14 day germination period. So relatively quickly, we should see these up, probably within about a week, poking their head through surface. Next step is what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the beds and I'm just going to seed it out with this jar, which has a known weight to it. And then I'm going to come back and weigh the jar and see how much seed I actually took out of it without knowing. So we'll see. This is kind of a blind study here. So how did I do? Well, not so good. This jar started out with an initial weight of 966 grams. I just freehanded it, shaking it out of the jar as you saw, and the final weight of the jar is 870 grams. So I used about 100 grams of seed. Now I needed 7 grams of mustard and 14 grams of Daikon, so I needed 21 grams total to go into this bed. I 5x'd that just off my initial expectation. So I'm probably seeding high. Now I also get that these seeding rates are for people that drill this into the soil or use a seeder. So let's give ourselves a little forgiveness here, but I think at the most you should really be double the stated seeding rate, and now I'm 5 times it. So I can cut back. I'm gonna actually try and measure this out now, and let's see how much seed we actually need, because I think when you look at a jar like this, you don't actually accurately estimate the volume or the weight of seed here. I think we think that there's a lot less here than there actually is, and in reality, this jar is gonna go a lot further than we all think it will. What I've gone and done now is I've gone and measured 1 pound out of seed. This is 1 pound of seed right here. How much is the recommended seeding rate for this small 34 square feet? It's tiny. It's tiny, tiny. It's this much. You can compare these. There is nothing in here. In fact, this almost looks like the amount I think I would spill when I would be seeding a bed like this. And this is twice the recommended seeding rate. This is 44 grams versus the 22 grams or 21 grams that I actually needed. So this is what a pound of seed looks like, and this is the required seeding rate times 2. What's interesting about this is it's amazing, because I look at this and I think, oh my God, there's nothing in there. That's not enough, and I would surely use more than that. I'm gonna seed this bed with just this amount, and we'll see what it actually looks like on the bed itself. But for me, I'm looking at this saying, not enough, not enough. And this is where the benefit of a seeder comes in. You know, the seeder is going to be precise. You can measure how much seed goes in. You know how much seed is being put down because you can calibrate the seeder accordingly. And if you're doing large areas or using a lot of cover crop seed, I think this eyeballing it way is a way a lot of money goes out the window, because I really don't think us as humans, at least newbie humans, have a lot of experience with estimating the amount of seed in a jar. I think we're always over applying. So using a seeder or something that can mechanically measure that for us and regulate for us is one way to save a lot of seed. Nonetheless, again, this isn't expensive. This is about $3.50 worth of seed right here. So this has got to be 20 cents. I'll have to do the math on it, but not very much. There's a quarter here. So I'm going to seed it at this rate and see what I think. Well, I'll tell you one thing, when you measure, it's a lot slower going, because I'm trying to be pretty diligent about getting the seed down accurately, which is actually pretty hard shaking it out of a jar. I'm really worried I'm going to end up with using most of the seed on the front half of the bed, have nothing on the back end. So measuring the seed this way on such a small area, honestly, I don't know if it's worth it for me. The hassle of it and the irregular seeding pattern I'm gonna get, it probably just isn't worth me saving 25 cents. So I like the a la carte method. Even if I'm spending more on it, it seems like a better way to go. Now I may try seeding this with an actual seeder later in the year, but I'm not there yet. So again, this was tough with just this little itty bitty amount of seed. I'll rake it out, we'll make it work, but it just seemed like not very much. One other thing that's a little challenging and new for me is seeding with permanent pathways. In the past, I didn't have permanent pathways, so if some of the seed went into the nearby bed that was directly adjacent to it, that was all good, because it's all going to grow up as cover crop. Now I'm going to have these permanent pathways, and it's a little bit of a challenge to actually broadcast seed and keep it on the beds and not go into the pathways themselves. So that's been a little bit of a challenge. Next, I'm going to try and put this seed in using this rake technique that Jody Roebuck told me about, where you use a rake to essentially pound the seed into the bed. I'm going to try that, see how it works. That seemed to go pretty well. One thing I noticed doing this is I'm looking at this 44 gram seeding rate and I'm thinking, that looks thin. And it's taken everything in me not to go back and put more on this bed. But I'm gonna leave it. For the sake of the study, I'm gonna leave it. A couple other notes here for this video. I'm planting straight into compost. You know, we'll see how that goes. And also 6-inch pathways, which is what I have right in the center between these two beds. That's narrow. So if you're choosing that narrow of a pathway as a standard bed, it's kind of insane. It's really hairy working in there. But now that these seeds are all raked in, next step will be to water them in. Then I'm going to cover them with landscape fabric. Again, as Jody Roebuck, Roebuck Farm suggested, to keep the birds off of it. We're hopefully going to get rain tomorrow or the next day. So one reason I wanted to get this in today is so the rain comes, we get a little cooler temperatures, and you know, the rain will help get this all well watered. One other thing I'm noticing I gotta be really careful of now with these permanent pathways, and especially adding this new compost that's not hydrated, is over watering, because what it's gonna do is not absorb in. The compost is initially hydrophobic. It doesn't want to take the water, and it's going to pick up the seeds and float the seeds right into the pathways, which are lower from me walking on them in the bed. So I got to be careful here just to lightly spray on the water. I think it'll help to get the row cover on there, or the shade cloth, because that'll help break up the water stream itself. There I go, shade cloth is down and I'm good to go. I'll repeat on this bed and that should be it. I don't have to do anything. If you missed that video on shade cloth, the whole purpose of putting this down, at least for my context, is to keep birds from picking the seed. Otherwise, that little bit of seed I put down is gonna go into birds' bellies, and I don't want that. I have enough manure here, I want the seed here. It also provides a little bit of moisture retention, which will help because it's starting to get warm here. It's a passive technique. This is shade cloth I got free on Craigslist, so it doesn't cost me anything, but easy to use, it's lightweight, it'll last forever, doesn't unravel, so I really like it. But this is it. This is the first set of cover crops down on the new permanent beds that I have, and I'm pretty stoked about it. It's mustard, Daikon. Hopefully it'll work well. I need to get the chickens down here in probably 2 to 3 weeks, so I'm gonna probably be grazing this pretty early in its life cycle, just because I'm space constrained right now in this whole transition. But that's it, it's done for the day, on to the next project. Thanks for watching this one. Until next time, be nice, be thankful, and do the work.